Okay. Let's see what Restream is doing here. Okay. Okay, is everybody back? Are we back? Testing 1, 2, 3. Are we back? Can you guys see me? How many fingers am I holding them up? Nope, can't do that. All right. You guys back? Can you hear me? Okay, I saw 5. Actually, it's 4 and 1 thumb, but that's all right. I'll take 5. All right. Sorry, guys. I don't know what the heck happened there. Let's see what we got. Let's see if this gets back up here. Nope. Yeah, okay. It looks like we were live. Something dropped. I don't know what happened, but I think my internet connection dropped because everything just went nuts. So, yeah, hopefully. All right, so where was I? Oh, yeah, the message to young man. Well, I mean, anyway, J.D. Vance, to be honest with you, he is starting to grow into the role, and he is getting to the point where he is that he is essentially doing what he should be doing at this point, and that's pretty dang cool. So so yeah, we'll just have to see what is going on. Okay. All right. I think I got this. Let's go here. There we go. So we'll just have to see as he grows into his position and that kind of thing. So it'll be pretty awesome, I think, overall over the course of time. And of course, he has time, honestly, to get to the point where he will be able to. Okay, let's see what we can do here. All right. He'll get to a point where he will, I'm sure, be able to take out or get, grow into the position and especially under the tutelage of somebody like Donald Trump, to be able to bring that kind of thing along. So yeah, we'll just have to watch and see, what happens over time. But rumblers are pointing out, he's got a lot of time to learn, so we'll just have to see what's going on in terms of that. But anyway, all right. Yeah, are we still having some issues? No, it doesn't look like it on my end. So anyway, all right, we're gonna kill that one. I have to go back through and restart a few things to make sure that I'm following it. But are we back to dropping frame? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I'm here. I mean, I'm here. I'm live. Huh. It's probably going to take a minute for it to quit bouncing or whatever. So. Okay. Where was I at? Oh, yes. All right. So Doge has been making all kinds of stuff occur. And yeah, so it looks like some things are bouncing. I don't know why, but anyway, I'm keeping an eye on it, folks. I'm keeping an eye on it. I haven't seen anything since our major crash, but anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. So Doge has been making some all kinds of like discoveries, let's say. And I got to tell you, I knew that there was government waste. I mean, government itself is government by itself. That just they misappropriate money all the time because it's not their money. They don't care. I mean, Milton Friedman talked about this. He basically was saying that you know, when you have what he called the third party payer system, all right, when you have the third party payer system, you end up with it just basically, thank you, Quint Mojo, or Quintimojo. He or she just gifted 5 subscribers, some people on the thing they just gifted. Thank you so much, and also became a monthly supporter too. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. So anyway, as I was saying, Doge has gone around and found all kinds of waste and fraud and so on and so forth. And here's a couple more things that they found. This one in particular, it has to deal with the schools and how the schools spent billions in COVID relief funds. They spent it on hotel rooms at Caesar's Palace. They spent it to rent a Major League Baseball stadium. They spent it on an ice cream truck. Now, I got a question for you. I got a question for anyone about all this. What does any of this have to deal with something in the Constitution? I mean, what does any of this have to deal with American protection or any of the items that are in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution that Congress should be focused on? What does any of that have to deal with it? And they went ahead and schools spent, this is in the article in the Fox News article here, schools spent hundreds of billions of COVID relief funds on expenses that had little impact on students, according to the Trump administration's cost-cutting department. They revealed on Thursday that schools have spent nearly $200 billion in COVID relief funds with little oversight or actual impact on students. Now, Granite Public Schools in Utah spent their COVID relief funds on $86,000 of hotel rooms at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, while Santa Ana Unified School District in California spent $393,000 to rent out a Major League Baseball stadium, according to a report by Parents Defending Education and shared by Doge. So they also, some schools spent $60,000 of COVID relief funds on swimming pool passes, while a California school district used its funds to purchase an ice cream truck. I'd really like to understand how any of that, any and all of that, has anything to do with anything to do with education. And why did that money not filter down to the kids? I mean, this is just one example, one very large and prevalent example of the mismanagement of funds that the third-party payer system, which is the federal government, does. And if you think that these particular cases that are being presented here are outside of the norm, I can tell you they're not. They're not outside of the norm, and that's part of the problem. So Doge wrote in a post on X that all of this money was drawn with zero documentation. Doge highlighted that the Trump administration is implementing more thorough requirements for dishing out the $4 billion left from the funds, requiring that all grantees must provide receipts for every purchase before funding is released. Now, I'd like to understand, first of all, why is there $4 billion left? I mean, wasn't COVID from like 2020 to 2022? Why do we still have $4 billion hanging out, waiting for this? I mean, why? This is, and it's all the Department of Education funds, by the way. Again, none of this stuff that Doge is exposing, none of this falls under Article 1, Section 8 as the appropriate use of American taxpayer dollars. Not one of it. Okay? Not one. Yeah. Anyway. Well, the funny thing about all this is, of course, the comments have been that the Democrats have been on the receiving end of all of these things, that the Democrat grift, let's say, have all been on the receiving end of these things. And yeah, I would say so, because Doge found something else out, in particular to one Democrat who probably today, I think, still believes that she's the governor of Georgia. Stacey Abrams, after she left politics, embarrassingly left politics, she started up some foundations and some specialized groups. And apparently, according to the Daily Fetched here and a couple of other places, Stacey Abrams' linked group received $2 billion. Yes, that's B, billion with a B, from the Biden administration for a green energy scheme. So it's a climate group that was linked to Stacey Abrams that was granted a whopping $2 billion by the Biden administration, according to the Trump administration's EPA. The EPA revealed that the Biden administration was allowing just 8 singular entities to distribute $20 billion of taxpayer money, quote, at their discretion. Huh. And it also ultimately went to Democrat schemes. Included in the funds was a $2 billion grant for a nonprofit Power Forward Communities, which is a group that is tied to Abrams itself. The nonprofit sought to reduce our impact on the climate by financing the replacement of household appliances with so-called green alternatives. Yeah. Okay. First of all, let's just say, look, folks, the whole idea of climate change, and by climate change, I'm not talking about weather. What I'm talking about is the whole idea of the human affected climate change is nothing but a grift. Okay. It is nothing but a money-making, tax-driven grift. Okay. Yes, the climate is changing, but it's been at, near apocalyptic levels for decades now, and not one thing has changed. In fact, when you ask people like the Obamas, who seem to believe that, climate change is going to happen, why did you buy a house in Martha's Vineyard right next to the ocean if you're so concerned and so sure that the oceans are going to rise? And why are banks putting things out like that? Why are banks putting out loans on that? Believe me, they would not be risking their money if it were a scientifically proven fact that our oceans were going to rise. in terms of all that. Yeah. Anyway, so the $2 billion was used for the decarbonization of homes, which paid for new appliances in households such as water heaters, induction stoves, solar panels, EV chargers, and some further weatherization. So, yeah. So anyway, now Power Forward Communities, however, reported that just under $100 in revenue, but was later granted $2 billion by the Biden-era EPA in 2024. Well, wait, what? Hold on. Power Forward Communities reported, and I got to break this down because this is kind of getting me confused, reported just $100 in total revenue and was granted $2 billion? They were given only 21 days to distribute the $2 billion and a further 90 days to complete a training session called How to Develop a Budget. And this is all according to Lee Zeldin. Yeah. Really? Yeah, this is definitely a grift. This is definitely a grift. I'm just saying. This is definitely a grift for sure. Oh my gosh. I can't. And you know, the thing about it is with this whole thing, folks, is that this is just the stuff that we know about. Okay, this is just the stuff that we know about. This isn't. I mean, how much more is out there? We are 36 trillion, almost 37 trillion in debt. Okay. In debt. Where is all this coming from? I mean, gosh. This is really disgusting. Almost everything that we see here is absolutely appalling and disgusting in terms of all this. Anyway, so USAID, which of course has been the focal point of a lot of the latest findings, the earlier findings before Doge moved on to some other places. Well, they apparently also got a $2 billion grift for the U.S. taxpayers. You know, the whole thing, and this was the entire thing was all about Gaza famine. Okay. Take a look at this. Front page. USAID stole $2 billion from U.S. taxpayers for Gaza famine hoax. So here's some photos that are out here, okay, that are out on the net, out on the web. You can see them right here. I'm showing them to you. They're right here in the article. Okay. These are markets that are reportedly in the Gaza Strip. These are marketplaces that are apparently filled with food. But yet ABC recently claimed that international aid organizations are warning that humanitarian efforts in Gaza would be severely impacted if the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, is shut down by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah, here's the post. This is from Ramallah News. Ramallah News. They posted these photos. And they basically state these photos are not in the West Bank or in Jerusalem, but in Gaza, where large supermarkets have returned to open their doors to the citizens, and all items are available. Really? And here there's even 12 more pictures. They've got all kinds of stuff in here. I mean, Their shelves are full. They got food. They're stocked. And yet USAID basically took $2 billion, yes, that's another B, billion dollars from our taxpayers. Now, first of all, we could argue, well, why are we even funding this stuff over there? Because again, I go back to the whole point when you look in the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8. There's not one item in there that says that the federal government needs to be able to gather U.S. taxpayer dollars to dole it out to the rest of the world. Not one single dollar should be going to these kinds of things. Now, if we were negotiating some sort of a trade deal, like what we're attempting to do with the Ukraine, in terms of getting some of their raw minerals in exchange for support, then yeah, that's totally within the federal government's purview according to the Constitution. But there's not one mention of taking United States dollars, tax dollars, and just passing it off to other countries. This is a leftist idea. This is a Democrat idea. And just to keep you guys in the loop, it was Carter who created USAID with the idea that we would advance, try and stem the tide of communism. But anyway, yeah. Anyway. Oh, but there's more. Yep, there's more. So you guys wonder why we're in an inflationary cycle? I mean, seriously, why would we be in an inflationary cycle right now? Inflation comes from the printing of money that only the government can do, which creates more dollars chasing too few goods, and that creates inflation. Well, you wonder why we're in an inflationary cycle. Here's one more. This one in the Daily Fetched. The Biden admin apparently spent $20 billion. Yes, that's again a billion with a B in taxpayer money on services for, they call them migrants. I'm calling them illegal aliens. That's just the way it is. Okay. Now, cars, home loans. I mean, that's what it was spending money on. Taxpayer money on this. So according to the report, Biden's Department of Health and Human Services spent $20 billion on grants. Now, these are not loans, folks. These are not loans. They are grants. And when the government gives a grant, it doesn't expect to see that money ever again. Okay? So it spent $20 billion on grants to help migrants purchase cars, homes, as well as loans for startup businesses, among other services. The Office of Refugee Resettlement handed out this $20 billion in taxpayer money to nonprofits and NGOs during the fiscal years of 2021 to 2024. The giveaway ultimately became the giant magnet for those crossing the border and claiming asylum, according to the New York Post. Shocking data provided to the outlet by Open the Books showed that $2.3 billion was allocated in the fiscal year of 2021, followed by $3.3 billion. Okay, in 2022, $10 billion in 2023, and $4.2 billion in 2024. Now I got a question for you. Where did that money come from? The American taxpayer. Just like the whole Biden administration of forgiving loans. Okay. But, yeah. Anyway, the ORR was tasked with resettling migrants, aka illegal aliens, claiming asylum in the United States as numbers surged under the Biden administration. As the number of migrants entering the country increased, so did the spending, with over $10 billion distributed in 2023 alone. Total of $1.7 billion was given to NGOs to fund payments for cars, homes, college tuition, and even startup business loans for up to $15,000 for migrants who had never paid a single cent in U.S. taxes. And you think these people are actually going to be able to, like, I don't know, take care of your money when it comes to Social Security? Really? I mean, seriously, people. This is the kind of stuff that government does, and government does not need to be doing. It doesn't need to be doing this. And now what's sad about all of this, of course, is that a lot of this stuff, as you notice, it was handed over to, non-governmental organizations and those kinds of things, like Stacey Abrams connected non-governmental organization. Well, where did that money go? It disappeared. And that's exactly what the Democrats are attempting to stop Doge and Trump and the American people from finding out. This money is not supposed to be used this way, people. It's not supposed to be allocated this way. It shouldn't be this way at all. And they keep talking about how Medicaid, Medicare, all of that other stuff is, only allocated to individuals. No, according to that same article, Medicaid coverage, emergency housing support, and other services were offered to migrants. Yeah. So many of those funds, though, were allocated to placing unaccompanied migrant children, with $12.4 billion obligated over the last 5 years, according to the Post-Millennial. The spending continued even as nearly 300,000 children were placed with sponsors who were not properly vetted. And of course, as far as we know, they are still missing. Yeah. Misappropriation of funds? Yep. And yet these people, especially, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but the Democrats will take people who basically aren't exactly the sharpest knives in the drawer to trot out in front of the mainstream media, maybe because they look good, maybe because they, I don't know, are, fairly communicative, I guess. I don't really know what the reasons are, but they are literally dumb as rocks. And the mainstream media doesn't bother to question them on anything. Well, first it was, AOC, and AOC was like the so fresh, so face, as Ben Shapiro called her. And she started to get into a position where she was, shall we say, being shown that how stupid she is. Okay. Well, then you had somebody like Pete Buttigieg, right? Who's supposed to be, he's supposed to be a young male. He was gay, so on and so forth. He fit the intersectional boxes. And so they put him out there for a while. Well, now AOC's been disgraced. Kamala Harris is gone. Biden's gone. So now they have to turn their attention to somebody else. And they have decided on who that person's going to be. That person is apparently Jasmine Crockett. Yes, Jasmine Crockett. Now, she reportedly is a lawyer. And I've run across a few lawyers, leftist lawyers, who are now have been shown to be like some of the dumbest people I think I've ever met. Or I should say listen to, because not necessarily that I've met them. But Jasmine Crockett is now talking about the reported $5,000 per taxpayer that was floated as an idea. Okay. Floated as an idea to be returned to the American taxpayers of all the stuff that Doge is finding and being able to like pull back and stop from being utilized. Well, she was on ABC News Live one night, and she was discussing Doge. Well, let's take a quick listen to hear what Representative Jasmine Crockett, the latest face of the Democrat Party, is going to say.
Now, President Trump says he likes the idea of giving some of the savings from Doge back to Americans as kind of a dividend. Would you support that?
Listen, he's just telling a lie. He's not the one that had anything to do with the $1,200 refunds that people had during the midst of COVID that was done by a Democratic House and Democratic Senate. Right now, what they're going to do is say, hey, we want to give you a refund, but Congress won't let us, because they already know that there's just no money for that. The only reason that those refunds came before was because we were living in different times. This was a time in which hopefully we won't ever go through again. We had a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. The bad part is that I don't know if it's once in a lifetime, because we know that Ebola, unfortunately, was detected right here in New York here recently. And if we continue down this road of getting rid of scientists or deciding that we don't want to rely on experts as it relates to what they're telling us to do, or we don't want to deal with vaccines and medicine in this country, then we may be facing not only our next pandemic, but our next 2, 3, or 4 pandemics because of their incompetence. So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you.
Yeah. They're not in the business of giving out money. Yet they gave out, as I just pointed out, $24 billion. And that's just what I discussed tonight. $24 billion with worth of taxpayer money for shit that doesn't need to be there. Yeah. I don't think that's a just I can't understand. I just can't get it. I quit. Oh, these people, they just they sit there and they talk about how that we needed COVID funds. Actually, we didn't. We didn't need COVID funds. In fact, if we had just, done what Florida had done in terms of COVID, I think the entire country would have been a lot better off. But no, they had to keep going. And, yeah. So, here, again, like I said, they're trotting her out everywhere. So here she is with the hens on The View. Okay. And, yeah. So here she is talking to them, talking about them.
Woman, you've earned a reputation for some calling out certain Republican antics. We all remember the viral bleach, blonde, bad-built, butch body moment with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And last month, things took quite a turn when you confronted Congresswoman Nancy Mace over her anti-trans rhetoric. Let's see the clip.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, trans, trans so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or not.
Do not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those emails
I have broken
actually
more
have
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I am
will.
reclaiming my time.
You will not do that. I am not a child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside.
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order.
Okay, so I'm sure when she said that, she was just offering to go for coffee or something. But we understand that you received a very unnerving call after some of this.
I did. Obviously, we get tons of calls from lots of haters all the time, but there was actually someone who works for another sitting member of Congress that called from that congressional office to our office to try to basically say, yeah, I want to put money on this. I want them to go outside. That is completely inappropriate. Yeah. And I don't really care what side of the aisle. It is threatening. And I don't care what side of the aisle you come from. But it should never be okay for a staffer. Okay. And it wasn't okay.
Okay. Yeah. Except, sweetheart, you have threatened people before, so don't sit here and give us that crap. Anyway, I can't take much more of this. Well, one of the things that she complains about repeatedly is that she keeps talking about, for an example, she said during that same episode, she was like, people don't understand, but you will understand when those hospitals in rural America start closing down even more. You will understand when you don't have your Social Security. You will understand your Medicaid, your Medicare goes away. You will understand when planes continue to fall out of the sky. Okay, now, let's just set the record straight. Here's Donald Trump with Elon Musk for talking about just that.
Look, Social Security won't be touched. Other than this fraud or something, we're going to find it's going to be strengthened, but won't be touched. Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
You don't have to. Now, if there are illegal migrants in the system, we're going to get them out of the system and all of that fraud, but it's not going to be touched.
So once again, okay, not that because I make the argument that Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all of those things, none of that was in the Constitution. It is not a constitutional responsibility of the federal government to bother with your retirement, to bother with your Medicaid, Medicare, but the programs exist. And so because they exist, there has to be a smart way to draw them down. Now, they don't need to continue to exist, but they do have to be looked at because Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare, those programs are going insolvent. And they're going insolvent mostly because of the fact that they have allowed, and again, this goes back, not all, but mostly Democrats have changed the rules and allowed people who are not supposed to be a part of those roles or a part of those programs into those programs because Democrats view taxpayer money as a free blank check. That's it. That's what they do. They look at the taxpayer dole as not somebody who is entrusting you with their money to spend it wisely. They look at it as, oh, that's just like a whole vacuum cleaner. We can just create a new tax to backfill whatever money we spend. Yeah. Now, the FAA, by the way, for her claim about the planes falling out of the sky thing, the FAA has documented numerous near-miss incidences for decades, demonstrating there's nothing linking the incident to Donald Trump's policies, but there is obviously information or at least coincidental linking between the Biden era policies for hiring, okay, for hiring people. Yeah. So anyway, she's the new AOC. She's the new fresh face. And the MSNBC crowd, the MSLSD, the ABC, the CBS, all of the View, all of the leftist mainstream media outlets are looking at her and thinking she is just this fantastically eloquent and strong woman when she comes off sounding like a complete, utter moron. Well, we're going to have to deal with her. And by the way, there's some indication or rumor running around that she actually may be considering a 2028 presidential run. Yeah. I don't think she's really going to go anywhere, to be honest with you. Well, I guess the Trump administration, kind of shifting gears here, the Trump administration isn't happy with the speed at which illegal aliens are being deported. And so he's gotten a little ticked off, and he's already ousted his top ICE official over concerns about that. Illegal immigrant arrests are up, but the administration itself is not satisfied. So they're replacing the acting head of the ICE over concerns about the pace of deportations and arrests. A source familiar confirmed to Fox News that acting ICE director Caleb Vitello has been removed from his position. The source said that the administration is not happy with the pace of deportations and arrests. The development was first reported by the Wall Street Journal, by the way. And a spokesman for the Department of Homeland Security has confirmed the personnel change to Fox News. So Donald Trump is delivering, folks. Donald Trump is delivering. He is delivering. He's going to deliver. He's going to do it for us, for the U.S. Americans, for the people that voted him into office. So, yeah. Anyway, ICE arrests have gone up significantly since the beginning of the administration, but has not been enough to meet the administration's targets. President Donald Trump had promised a historic mass deportation campaign on the campaign trail, and apparently he feels like it hasn't been happening. Now, Fox reported last week that the Department of Homeland Security data showed that 11,791 interior ICE arrests from January 20th to February 8th, compared to just under 5,000 during the same period in 2024. That's a 137% increase. Arrests of aliens with criminal histories have soared to nearly 100%, from 4,526 in the same period in 2024 to almost 9,000 under Trump this year. But apparently that's not enough. Anyway. Now, the numbers of people coming across the border, by the way, have plummeted. Fox News reported last week the daily average number of known getaways, illegal aliens who successfully entered the U.S. without apprehension at the southern border since the beginning of February has plummeted to just 132 per day. Okay. 93% down from the highest numbers of when former President Joe Biden was in office. Border czar Tom Homan said this week that border crossings are down 95% based on actual data. So, but apparently things are not going fast enough, so they're going to find another person who's going to make it faster, which is good. Well, the Department of Justice, now that we've got Pam Bondi in charge, as well as now we have Kash Patel in there. I'm going to tell you, the DOJ is going to start hitting back on these judges. Yep, here in the Epoch Times, the DOJ has filed a misconduct complaint against a judge who is overseeing the challenge to the transgender military ban. Now, for those of you that don't know, this was a order that was put out. They banned transgenders from serving in the military. There was obviously a lawsuit, and now the DOJ Chief of Staff, Chad Mizell, has requested that appropriate action be taken to address what he considers the judge's alleged violations of misconduct. They filed this yesterday. And this is against a federal judge in Washington over potential bias during the hearings. The complaint alleged that U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes engaged in, quote, hostile and egregious misconduct and violated the Judicial Code of Conduct when she treated a department lawyer, that's a DOJ department lawyer, okay, a DOJ department lawyer with disrespect during the 2-day hearing on the case. Mizell cited 2 instances where Reyes questioned the attorney about his religious beliefs and used him unwillingly as a physical prop in a rhetorical exercise during the hearing. In the first instance, Reyes apparently asked the lawyer what he believed Jesus would say to telling a group of people that they are so worthless that we're not going to allow them into homeless shelters. Mizell said that the question itself was problematic because it was irrelevant to the legal analysis of military policy and placed the lawyer in an untenable position to answer. So yeah, he commended the lawyer for his professional response, as the lawyer answered that the United States is not going to speculate on what Jesus would have to say about anything. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't say, well, according to the First Amendment, the government can't really say anything about what religion is going on. Anyway, so Mizell also pointed to Reyes' use of the inappropriate abbreviation WTF, which we all know what the fudge, when questioning the lawyer on his religious beliefs, saying that it demonstrated the judge's lack of professional decorum. The second instance involved Reyes physically directing the lawyer as a part of a rhetorical exercise during an exchange about discrimination. In a hypothetical scenario, Reyes instructed the attorney to sit down because she decided to bar graduates from the University of Virginia Law School from her courtroom because, quote, they're all liars and lack integrity. Yeah, this person really does need to be looked at. Anyway, they went ahead and filed the misconduct complaint over it. So the DOJ is starting to fight back. I'm telling you, this is a good sign. This is a good sign, folks. All right. This next story kind of leads into our question of the week, so pay attention a little bit here. All right. But before I get into this next story, I do have a quick question for a couple of my whiskey warriors out there. So Ms. T of Texas and G, I know the two of you live in Texas. I'm just curious, if you don't mind telling me what part of Texas or where you might be close to. Just give me like a large city or something that you might be close by, if you don't mind. I'm just kind of curious, and you'll find out in the near future about it. But just kind of give me an idea as to where you two are from in terms of that. So, oh, well, you just told it. You guys were talking about it okay, so you're outside of Houston. All right. Okay. All right. You might be interested in something. So there you go. Anyway. All right. So here we go. Getting back into this. The Epoch Times posted this, and this kind of is quite interesting here. New York City sues Trump admin over $80.5 million for illegal aliens. Okay. The Trump administration went and reappropriated the funds that were in a New York City bank account without warning, the city is alleging. Okay. Now, the complaint, of course, was filed in a Manhattan federal court, outlines why New York City rebuffed accusations by federal officials that it misappropriated funds, arguing that the funds were legally appropriated by Congress and were outside the authority of the president to seize them. Really? Really? Oh, it looks like we've got another person. Palms is also in Texas. All right. All right. Huh. So I've got some Texan folks out there. All right. So the White House on February 11th reclaimed the funds originally sent to the city through the FEMA Shelter and Service Program for illegal alien aid. According to the lawsuit, the federal government failed to follow FEMA procedures and federal guidelines. Okay, so here we go. This is going to be an interesting case to watch, because I can almost guarantee you that this will, or the next concept that I'm about ready to discuss in the question of the week, is going to come up during this time. Notice that they said that the funds were legally appropriated by Congress, and because they were legally appropriated by Congress, that they were outside the authority of the president to seize them. Okay? Now think about that for a second. What order would the president have? What power would the president have to be able to go and seize these funds? What constitutional power could he be using in this particular case? Well, that leads us into tonight's question of the week. Tonight's question of the week comes from Buddy Weiser. Wise and venerable, always present, always listening, but not always chatting. But that's fine. That's cool. Buddy writes, well, this is in the morning because that's when he sent it to me. Good morning, my digital friend. I bring tidings of gratitude and respect for your dedication to your program along with us warriors. I am so thankful for all of you. Thank you, buddy. I do appreciate that. He continues and says, that said, here is my inquiry. What is this presidential authority or power called impoundment? I heard it mentioned in a discussion about little-used presidential authorities. And then he says, I'm sure the inquisitive warriors would enjoy your answer. Thank you, Buddy Weiser. Well, thank you, buddy. You're right. That is a interesting potential federal presidential constitutional power. Here's the thing. According to Article 2, Section 3, it states in the Constitution, it states this, and notice how they keep saying he. Anyway, he shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers, and here's the key, here's the line that's specific here. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all officers of the United States. Okay. So here's the thing. The question comes in what they call the take care clause. Now, the take care clause, according to some, now keep in mind, there is no actual legal definition for the term take care. But as it is written in here, it's basically, the intent of this is to essentially say that, hey, he needs to pay attention to make sure that all the laws are faithfully executed. Now, I'm going to say that this even gives the indication and is the part of the Constitution that gives the president the idea and the power to basically do what the Doge team is actually doing, which is going out and auditing and making sure that all of the laws are being faithfully executed, that he is making sure, he is taking care to ensure that the money that has been given to him by the American people in the form of taxes is being spent wisely and appropriately. All right? Now, that being said, the take care clause has been determined to be the part of the practice of impounding appropriated funds, meaning that should the president find that the laws that Congress has written are not being faithfully executed, that he shall impound the monies that are not being utilized properly in a faithfully executed manner. So that's where the idea of impoundment comes from. Now, the possible definition of impoundment. Now, keep in mind, impounding appropriated funds doesn't really exist in statute or in Supreme Court case law. However, the definition that's generally accepted is basically this. It describes the executive branch's action or inaction that results in a delay or a refusal to spend appropriated funds, whether or not a statute authorizes the withholding. Now, there isn't any real full-on record as to whether or not the executive branch, how often it has used impoundment before, okay? But here's the thing, okay? The earliest example that most people point to is when President Thomas Jefferson delayed spending funds appropriated in 1803 for the purchase of gunboats. Now, the purchase of gunboats was supposed to be in response to international tensions concerning the port of New Orleans. After Congress made the funds available, the president then went and negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, rendering the immediate use of the gunboat appropriation totally unnecessary. Now, presidents in the 19th and 20th centuries have similarly signaled a willingness to delay or withholding spending appropriated funds. So, impoundments by themselves usually are preceded or proceeded on the view that an appropriation sets a ceiling on spending for a particular purpose, but typically doesn't say that all of the money has to be spent. Okay. Now, in terms of that kind of a view, that basically means that if the president goes out and negotiates a better deal, let's say, so let's say Congress goes and says, hey, we're going to spend, $100 million on some new military aircraft. And the president negotiates through the business partners that create the aircraft that maybe it only comes to a value of, let's say, 90 million. Okay, where they were appropriated 100 million. That means there's a 10 million balance. And so 10 million balance means that he can take that 10 million. Hey, you guys, meaning the purse. Okay, because remember, Congress has the power of the purse. So he looks at Congress and says, hey, you guys gave me 100 million. I got them to only to basically only take 90 million. That means I got $10 million right now that I can use, that you've already appropriated, that I can use in some other way, some other fashion. Okay. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the thought process for it. And in terms of some of the history of this, that's how impoundments were justified, because the the grounding also too, whether a statute other than the appropriation statute itself can possibly also authorize the withholding. Now, executive impoundment in history was utilized by President Richard Nixon a lot. He employed impoundment more frequently than many of his predecessors. His administration justified impoundments by stating that different funding levels or different funding models were preferable to the ones that Congress had selected when it had first appropriated the funds. In other words, what the idea here is that the Congress may hold the power of the purse or hold the purse strings, but they're not the ones who are necessarily negotiating the deals. And so if the president, acting as the executive, can negotiate a better deal or negotiate better terms of the deal, then that basically means that anything that is left, the president now has the authority, rather than handing it back to Congress, has the authority to basically hold on to the money in order to negotiate better deals, or potentially even utilize the expenditures in a different fashion. And that's the whole point. Now, the Nixon impoundments were scrutinized in congressional hearings. And they looked at it, Congress looked at it as an unconstitutional assertion of essentially what would be a line item veto, which we know doesn't happen. It's not constitutional. By withholding funding for a program, Congress had argued the president could modify or terminate the program without actually having to veto or formally or the entire act that made the withheld funds available in the first case. Administration officials during that time, on the other hand, located the president's authority to impound funds among, in other places, the take care clause. So this is where the argument has come into play. It's like, look, Congress can go and appropriate the funds, but it's up to the president to faithfully execute and make sure that the laws are actually done properly. And this is what President Trump is doing right now. He is going through and making sure that the laws that are being presented are being faithfully executed. Now, one could argue that Congress just needs to write better laws, get more details, get more specific about what they're talking about. Okay, but there you go. So, yeah. Now, there is one case in particular in 1838, the United States versus Kendall, that has been cited particularly as the standing for the proposition that the president actually can't direct the withholding of certain appropriations that by their terms mandate spending. So the Supreme Court has not directly considered the extent of the president's constitutionally authority, but that one in particular, the court considered a statute in that case of directing one official, which was the Solicitor of the Treasury, to determine the amounts the government owed to a male contractor. There was a second official who was the Postmaster General, who was then required to credit the contractor's account according to the solicitor's findings. The Postmaster General refused to make the full credit, and when the contractor asked the federal courts to order that the full credit be made, the Postmaster General responded that only the president could control his execution of the law, which is, literal interpretation of the Constitution. But the court rejected that particular argument. So, yeah, it's, anyway. So there you go. There's where it comes from. And whether or not it's actually a true and constitutional, I don't think that the Supreme Court has actually figured that out yet. They haven't really ruled on anything with this. As with many things with the Constitution, it is not, it's assumed, but hasn't actually been figured out 100% because the questions never come up. So there you go. We'll have to see what happens here with all of this spending, because I'm sure that may be one of the tax that the lawyers for the president take is like, look, he can withhold, he can pause, he can withhold spending, because even Nancy Pelosi made that comment once. You know, he can withhold spending. It doesn't mean that he can't, or that he can't stop it or just blanket forgive, but he can pause, he can stop, he can hold off, those kinds of things. Not stop completely, like terminate it, just temporarily stop, that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's the whole idea. All of those things are the whole idea of what is essentially impoundment. Hope you enjoyed that. If you want to get your question of the week answered here on the program on Saturday nights, you've got to send it to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Don't forget, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, follow the American Perspective channel. Therefore, you can hit that green button, that follow button that allows you to get notified every time I go live. Sorry for the technical glitch. And we'll just hopefully we'll rock through it another time. That seemed to be on my end. I don't know why, but I'll see if I can look into it. Anyway, we will see you on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.